this is my PR IMC.
Can you break down what mentor growth means for our audience?
Mentor growth would basically be like the students who have graduated from the system, volunteers or peer mentors essentially to students that are currently in the system. So it's not just press releases, it's not just press conferences, there's a lot more to it. Don't worry about perfectionism. Challenges are great. Like you're learning a lot just by doing the hands-on stuff. I'm so interested in public relations that it's like, I want to practice. I want to learn from people. Just continue to share what you know.
Holly Barron, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yes, thank you so much, Ryan. My name is Holly Barron. I am a junior at UTSA, UT San Antonio. I'm currently studying communications with the focus of public relations. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
Awesome. And do you want to practice public relations when you graduate?
Yes, so I have an associate's in journalism, but I'm trying to focus on public relations because journalism and public relations kind of ties into each other, and I want to challenge myself.
Yeah. And if you're working in journalism or you're working in public relations, you really need to know the other side of that equation because you depend on public relations pros as a journalist. And as a public relations pro, you depend on the journalists. So there's a really important relationship there for making sure that you understand how a pitch works and how to talk to media professionals and how to manage media relations. And you just completed our public relations introductory course. Please tell us about your experience and maybe give us some advice to people who are approaching this course for the first time.
Yeah, so this project was a lot of fun and it was more hands-on than actually learning about it. And I did mine over at Communities in Schools San Antonio because I've always been fascinated with it. Especially because I went to a school district that was a partner of that. So it really just gave me another perspective like, oh, this is what they do, but like, how does it help communities? I'm really excited to share that and learn public relations more and just share what I've learned.
Yeah, and this is an asset you can use to highlight your experience in your next interviews, be they journalism jobs or public relations jobs. You have a portfolio of media industry expertise that you can take to those specific kinds of interviews, which is great. What were some of the big challenges in the course that you or you saw your peers struggling with, and what's your advice for overcoming those?
I would say my biggest challenge was actually creating the press releases themselves, like having to find that information like not only on their website but like their social media channels like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Like I had to go through all that and figure out like what's the most important event that's going on and like how is it important? Why is it important? So I would say research ahead of time. That would help so much because I did not do that and I kind of feel like I should have. So yeah, research ahead of time and just like maybe even communicate with the directors like, hey, I'm doing this for a class project and I'd love to connect with you and see how can I assist in any way and like what can I put in because I did not communicate with those professionals and I realized I should have because it's like, yeah, I could have gained so many more events to write a press release about, but I didn't. I just went straight on the website, straight on the LinkedIn, and just wrote about that. Like, hey, there's this great event going on, and we'd love to have you, or we're inviting the community, alumni, students, graduates. Yeah, so I feel like I should have communicated with those professionals.
Yeah. And that opportunity you'll get again if you take the planning and campaigns course later, because there's a lot more communication expected with your nonprofit client in that kind of situation, because the course is focused more on the next level in planning and campaigns. Were there any parts of the project that you really enjoyed that you were like, oh, this one's going to be fun?
I enjoyed creating the posts and the informational aspect of it because it was actually pretty challenging for me to figure out Adobe and just create those designs. But it was also really entertaining for me because it's like, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know that I could figure this out because I was going to relate on Canva and Canva I have to pay for. So it's like, I don't want to pay for that. I'd rather use the school resources. Completely free.
As an Adobe Creative Campus, we have access to Adobe Express Premium, which is great for students who want to create. I'm hoping that we get access to some other Adobe things as well as time moves forward and they realize the importance of giving students access. I hope that happens. Anything else you want to share about your project before we take a look at it?
I want to share that my survey that I had created in the beginning was really fun to do because I haven't created a survey in a long time. Just going back to Google Forms, what I used to use a long time ago, was very entertaining for me because I don't know why. It was just so interesting. And I was like, "Oh, I forgot how to do this, but now I know for future reference."
And did you have experience volunteering with communities and schools or anything before you started doing their project?
I don't remember if I volunteered personally, but I have heard of their volunteer efforts, like on campuses. But they hosted a lot of clothes drives and like food drives and school supply drives. I don't remember if I participated.
It was an organization that was meaningful to you, and that's why you chose it?
Yeah, and a lot of my peers have benefited from them. Like they were graduates of the system.
Fantastic. Let's take a look at your public relations plan.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. So this is my PR IMC that I created over communities and schools. So I have my research insights, how many surveys completed, the interviews that I completed, and the distribution channels of where I shared. These were my top 3: GroupMe, my personal Instagram story, my LinkedIn feed, the situation of the nonprofit themselves.
Break that down for us.
Communities and schools focuses on sharing important resources and like school supplies, food resources, like anything else that students may face or like even their families. Communities and schools is guided by connection, compassion, and commitment. They're partnered with 14 San Antonio school districts like Northside Independent School District, Northeast ISD, San Antonio ISD. I'm one of those students from Northside Independent School District, so a lot of my peers benefited a lot from communities and schools.
Let's take a closer look at that. So you mentioned a community data hub. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so community data hub basically means the people within that community, they have a lot of resources that benefit that community. They're not only helping students, but they're also helping like surrounding families that may not have students in the system yet. I felt that it was very important to highlight that because communities and schools does a lot and they need a lot of volunteers because what they do is very important for people.
Absolutely. Something like this that's doing good work, but has low visibility among the people who might be able to support the organization is a perfect place for public relations to help, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was also highlighted on my USP here. So, preventing educational decline, yet visibility remains low among UTSA students. I felt that was important to highlight for that because UTSA students, like, we see a lot going on, but we don't realize that there are others who may consider going to college that don't have the adequate resources they need. So, like basic school supplies, food, housing, all that stuff, even clothing. So, I wanted to share that.
Awesome. Tell us about your audience analysis.
Yeah, so my audience analysis was based on my survey. UTSA students are the primary audience, and then there's also other San Antonio College students that filled out my survey. And they're the secondary audience. And my research showed high interest in youth academic success with prioritization of clear outcomes and organizational trust, meaning they want clear trust from communities and schools, San Antonio. And then volunteerism is limited by time. So a lot of students said, I don't have the time during the week to volunteer. And then credibility issues, like I won't volunteer unless it's a trusted organization. A lot of students basically didn't know about communities and schools San Antonio. So that's kind of where these answers came from. And then the students with time constraints favor small donations like clothing or supplies. Whenever there's a clothing drive or a school supply drive, like in the summer, students would most likely volunteer with that, like donate old clothes, donate school supplies. And then psychographically, students respond best to peer and club-led initiatives, such as like club organizations that are going to volunteer, or if there's a volunteer credit opportunity, mostly respond to that, I should say. So the opportunities here would be campus events, driving higher engagement. Like I said, the volunteerism through student organizations, and then the time, transportation, and lack of trust are the main barriers that I've seen in my responses.
Excellent. Tell us about your strategic objectives.
Yeah, so my strategic objectives were drive a 15% donation increase and 20% mentor growth by the end of year of 2026.
Can you break down what mentor growth means for our audience?
Mentor growth would basically be like the students who have graduated from the system. They could be volunteers or peer mentors essentially to students that are currently in the system. Like with Northside, those who graduated from communities and schools, San Antonio, like they could help donate drives or like not donate drives, have drives, donation drives, and donate clothes, donate school supplies, or like push the community to consider donating those things. But they can also mentor students that are currently in the system, like, hey, how did you deal with this when you were here in high school? Or like, what can I do to be a better student? A lot of students could help with that. I came up with my strategic alliances with UTSA and the San Antonio Spurs because these two organizations are really focused on community and supporting students. I would love to see those two organizations help out and just do what they can to push the community to consider donations, like clothes, food, school supplies.
And I saw the word guerrilla installations. Tell us about that.
Yes, so I would say this, in my opinion, is like small steps could lead to a big impact. That's how I see it. So like the non-traditional ghost student, that's like it helps that student feel seen and supported, just because of small steps that the community's taking that can make a big impact. That's how I see it.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah. And then success is measured via CRM tracking and mentor logs and sentiment surveys. So, like, those surveys could be created by the student mentors, or not student mentors, but graduate mentors, just to help students feel seen and heard. Like, hey, this is what I want to see, or this is something that I'd like to do, but I don't have the resources for that. So I feel like those were some key things that I had seen when I was in school and had those people like present to me. So I felt that was important.
And it's such a big impact. You get a few more people to show up, a few more people learn the right stuff, and a few more people become more successful and are able to, produce or enter the workforce at a higher rate of return on that investment.
Yeah.
Tell us about your creative campaign strategies and tactics.
My tactics are the embedded push. So the earned media and publicity, San Antonio Report or KSAT could focus on these, like host a series of a day in the life features. I know Ernie Zuniga with KSAT has his video podcast called Pickup Lines. And like he talks to all these different people in the San Antonio community. He's even done some on like Myra Arthur and Sarah Spivey. And it's really cool because it's like he asks them all these questions that are very interesting. So he could do that with like communities and schools, their representatives, like why is this important to you? And then focusing on the site coordinators, the volunteers that are employed by communities and schools San Antonio to be at the different partner sites. I remember there were one or two people that I've seen during my time in high school, and they were site coordinators. So they were employed by the district, but they were working with communities and schools San Antonio. So they could be the chief of staff for student success. And then the search engine optimization and digital promotion. So I was thinking like the Instagram and TikTok ads specifically for UTSA and Northside alumni, because I'm one of those alumni that wasn't in the system, but could be moved by these kinds of targeted ads. And then non-traditional tactics include the execution and the persuasion. My idea for the execution was to place a singular chair. It could be any kind of chair, and it would be empty, like on purpose, to highlight how students are impacted. Students feel invisible when they're not helped. But once somebody sees that and notices that there's a chair, they could be like, oh, so this represents a student from communities and schools from the program, and they're not being seen. Like they're not seen or help unless somebody donates something that could help them. And then the persuasion, well, the QR code on the chair would be like the landing page for communities and schools, like their website, like where they could donate money or learn to donate supplies. And so that's the marketing to create the physical break in that routine. So it could be like, oh, I need to do something about this because what if that's my kid? What if that's my cousin? It could be anybody.
And that personalization. I like this empty chair as a strategy for fundraising too. Having that kind of in your face display and energy there feels like it might be more persuasive than something you might see on social media, for example.
Yeah. And then my strategic alliances and co-sponsorships, I would definitely consider like UTSA as a support, mainly because I am one of the UTSA honors college students, but then I also work in the college, like the UTSA College of Liberal and Fine Arts Student Success Center, and we kind of bring in outside guests. So like we've had visitors from like different organizations, and I could possibly ask one of my supervisors like, "Hey, could we bring in Communities in School San Antonio to give a presentation about this or like consider just sharing information?" Because that's a great thing. That's a great thing to do. It could definitely give students a chance to be like, "Oh, I never heard about this before, but now I'll consider donating." And then Spurs and Schools partnership, I feel that Spurs Give does a lot. I've seen them do a lot. They've volunteered with the food bank a few times. They've donated money to a few organizations. And there's some players that are actually like out there giving and supporting people. So I just feel that's a really great sponsorship to do, like a co-sponsorship.
I love that because the Spurs are such an important part of the San Antonio community. And I grew up a Spurs fan. I grew up going to basketball camps and seeing the Coyote. I think it's so fun whenever students are actually inviting other organizations that are related into the process.
Yeah, and I also grew up a Spurs fan. So like ever since I was a kid, I'd see the Spurs players out there doing stuff, but like not in my areas, but like on the news. I watch the news all the time. And it's just great to see players being out there and supporting the community. And that's what we love. That's what we love to see.
Awesome.
And then my research summary and evaluation data from 2024 through 2026 academic years confirms that relationship based intervention is the number one predictor of graduation. I feel that's a really, really, really important highlight because students cannot thrive. Students cannot graduate if they don't have the resources they need. And I feel like I've benefited a lot from that too.
And this whole idea of relationships, that's a public relations playbook, isn't it? Like developing relationships of support, developing relationships of how can we help one another? How can we lift all boats? And this relationship based intervention at the school level helps those students who might be left behind without those kinds of important relationships. I think it's great that your research summary focused on that too.
Yeah, and a lot of students benefit more from relationships than being alone. Because isolation is never the great idea, or at least in my perspective.
Yeah. And this whole idea of social isolation crisis being identified in San Antonio's Title I districts. Tell me about that.
So a lot of students don't feel supported, and a lot of students drop out easily because they're isolated and they just don't have the support that they need or want. I feel like this is a great thing to take note of because students should be seen. I feel that the site coordinators like around the district and basically throughout the whole program, they're they're supportive of everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in the system or not. So like they don't just see you as a student, they see you for who you are. A lot of students aren't seen for who they are, they're just seen for their academics or their grades. That can be a factor in social isolation.
Take us to your press releases.
Yes, so I created these press releases. I used Google Docs just to get the font right. I created this first press release, which is their big event that's coming up, and it's basically their 40-year anniversary. So they're having a big gala at the Tobin Center. This is where it's going on. And like this is about communities and schools in San Antonio. in general, where it started, how it started. And then these were like the founders, and some of them are still like on the board today. I know Deborah Knapp is. She's a really great woman. I didn't get to personally meet her, but I've seen her like in her work when she was on the news, and like this is highlighting like when they started and then now. And then this is like the closing kind of message. And then, of course, the about at the end. So, like, communities and schools of San Antonio surround students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. As part of the National Communities and Schools Network, CISSA partners with schools and community organizations to provide integrated support services that improve academic outcomes, increase graduation rates, and strengthen student well-being. And then it has to learn more at www.cissa.org. And then it has like the contact info as well.
Cool. And it's so important to include that kind of boilerplate so that the media representation can better understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Let's flip back over to your project.
So, of course, the logo, I forgot to mention. This is more of the big event. I should say that other one was like just the about them. This is the big event that's going on. Thursday, May 21st from 5:30 to 10 p.m. at the Tobin Center for Performing Arts. And so a lot of students, alumni, mentors, educators, donors, partners, and community champions are invited to go to this event, but they have to sign up and register in order to be in that mailed invitation. So like the key dates and opportunities are here, and then the leadership who basically created the event and organized it, and then again the boilerplate here, like about, and then like the contact info.
Excellent. Ooh, the media pitch email. Tell us about your media pitch email.
I used one of the chat GPTs that Ryan had suggested, and it helped me create like this campaign email. It helped me find who is best aligned with this. So I found Sochi Garcia. I looked at her work a little bit and I was like, oh, she's perfect. She focuses on education. So I basically wrote this.
Wait, how did you find her?
I found her through your chat GPT that you had mentioned on the
Some people like
assignment.
to
Yeah.
use ChatGPT, that specific one. Some people like to use Perplexity. That's why I asked.
It was either Perplexity or ChatGPT, but I'm going to call it ChatGPT for now. Because it was one of those AIs on the assignment.
Yeah. It's crazy how even like because ChatGPT's dominance, people are using other AI and calling it chat, right? Or ChatGPT, even when it's not OpenAI software because it's so dominant.
Well, I'm just mainly using ChatGPT because that's helpful. But I found Sochi through that AI software, and it really helped me because I was like, oh, let me look her up. And I looked her up and I found all these great articles that she had written or like even talked about. And I was just like, oh, she's cool. She's perfect for this. I highlighted the main event going on, like, hey, there's this reunion gala for communities in schools San Antonio, and like you're focused on education, and I'd love for you to see it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I put my contact information like I was the public relations specialist because it was fun.
Excellent. And you are. That's your role here to help out the communities and schools.
Yeah. And then this is who it's to, Sochi Garcia of Texas Public Radio. This is my favorite part, the magazine feature.
What did you love about it?
I had some issues with Adobe Express and I was like, I need to figure this out. So it took me a while, but I kind of made it more professional than I wanted it to be.
So what you loved about it was the challenge?
Yeah, I love challenges. Challenges are so exciting.
And what did you discover in your journey here to create something a little bit better?
I would say inputting images is difficult, but it's not as difficult as I thought it was. So it was nice to just play around with it and get familiar with it.
And the digital images help tell the story, right?
Yes, this was a challenge to format because it kept wanting to shrink or like expand, and I'm like, no, I just need you to be perfect the way you are.
Awesome. And what's the angle that you're using for this story blurb right here?
This is just showing like how students are impacted by small donations. Even if it is $100 a month, you don't have to do that. I'm not encouraging you to do that. You can do that if you feel comfortable doing it. Even if it's like $5, that's still making a big impact for students. Every student deserves a place to learn, grow, and belong. That's how That's how I feel about it. Every student does not deserve to be in isolation. They deserve to be seen and heard. This one best fits in the magazine blurb because people are going to look at it and be like, oh, I could help a student. It doesn't have to be just me. And I wrote a lot of good things too. And then, of course, the little caption magazine feature for volunteering.
Yes.
I loved the social media concepts. This was fun to do because I found the images like on their LinkedIn or even their website, and I was able to turn it into something cool like this one. So this is a Facebook post, and I put the direct link for volunteering, and then this is the caption. I made sure that it was professional, but also wanted to include some emojis just to stand out. A lot of people my age, my peers, we love emojis and will respond to something if it has emojis like, oh, this is cool.
It's part of the native feel and language of Instagram for sure.
Yeah, and Facebook, yeah. This was Facebook. And then Instagram, this is the post for the anniversary gala. I was really proud of this one. I was like, I like the background. It's really cool. And then of course the date, Thursday, May 21st, 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then the caption, again, the emojis, but it all makes sense. It all connects to the purpose. The confetti, the stars, the calendar, the clock, the link. It's all just a connecting point. And then this is my LinkedIn post. I used the same image as the first one, but this one was really great to make because it's like, oh, this is not too basic, but not too wordy. Or at least for me in my thoughts when I was creating it. I was like, this isn't too wordy, but it's not too like professional. Like play around with it.
More authentic, more like homegrown content, right? The thing with being too wordy is if you're on the wrong platform, people don't want to read, they just want to see. At most, you can only have a few words because they're not expecting to read on that platform. You're expecting to watch videos or skim through images, right?
Yeah. So I'm really proud of this LinkedIn post.
And LinkedIn is one of those ones where you can get away with a little bit more text, right?
Yeah, and I use LinkedIn a lot more than Instagram and Facebook, so I was like, okay, this connects to me. This is who I am. This is what matters to me.
Awesome.
And then the promotional concept. I love this. Celebrate communities and schools San Antonio's 40th anniversary, where it's at, the email to purchase tickets.
And you got some kind of a luxe color scheme going on there with the gold and the black.
Yeah, because it's a milestone celebration, and everybody loves a milestone celebration kind of format.
40 years is huge. You think about the impact year over year for 40 years on people's lives of this nonprofit. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, especially for me, because it's like, wow, 40 years? That's crazy. But that's also really cool, like, that people have been committed to this nonprofit for 40 years and it's still going on.
So cool. And it's so great that it is. Tell us about your crisis communication plan.
So, the crisis communication plan is focused on making sure people are informed in case there is a crisis. And so, this one focused on a data breach crisis. This is a description. And then the ARM strategy is basically acknowledge, respond, and move on. This is important in public relations, in my opinion, because if without that, people don't know what you're doing. Always make sure to include these three
And
be
walk
clear
us
about it
through
too.
the acknowledgement, the response, and the moving on for this specific data breach crisis.
The acknowledge would be to genuinely recognize the gravity of the breach and the impact on the stakeholders. So like the stakeholders would be students, families, donors. I could go on, but those are the main three off the top of my head. And then the respond is to post acknowledgement. So like the press releases, the videos, if it's urgent, like I would feel that this is urgent. So yeah, like having those press release videos, like, or press conferences, like, hey, this is what's going on. We're aware of this. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're taking action on right now, and how it could affect you. And then move on. So like be transparent about it, and then be crucial when steering the narrative because you need to meet criteria of those stakeholders, and if they feel that you're not doing a good job, they can criticize you. They can publicly criticize you and scrutinize you. That could definitely damage the reputation of the nonprofit, and people would stop donating. That could definitely hurt you.
Yeah, a reputation is everything. Reputation management is what this public relations field is all about.
Yeah, and reputation is make or break. So if you make it, it goes increase. But if you break it, it goes decrease.
Trust. It's about trust. Yeah.
So then the crisis communication team, this is another one that's important when creating a crisis communication plan, because who's going to be in charge of everything? You can't just put one person in charge of everything. There has to be certain people within certain roles because crises are important and they can be fast paced. So the spokesperson would be the CEO. And then, of course, like director of marketing and communications or media relations specialists are the PR professionals. Like they're the ones taking care of the press releases for the spokesperson. And then, of course, legal counsel, like lawyers, attorneys, in case like there's a lawsuit or anything. And then key decision makers, in my opinion, they're like stakeholders for this kind of situation. So that would be the CEO, the chief operations officer, and then the chief student success officer. And then, of course, the stakeholders to keep in mind. So, like I said, if you don't include your stakeholders, that's like a make or break moment because it's like, who are you targeting this to? Why are you targeting it to these people? So, like, internal would be the employees, which are the site coordinators, the volunteers. So, like, students who volunteer or parents who volunteer, and then the board members of communities in schools, San Antonio. The external would be the students and their families, and then alumni of the system, and then school district partners, so like SAISD, NEISD, Northside, etc. Donors such as Deborah Knapp, she's cool. She's a great donate, like she's a great donor from what I've seen and heard. And then the local media, like the news outlets and Texas Public Radio, even radio stations in the San Antonio area, they'll definitely share news. So then there's the pre-drafted statement for data breaches. This is kind of like a press release in my opinion because it's kind of structured that way. So it's like this is what the spokesperson would say, like at a press conference.
What would they say?
So like they would talk about like this is the current situation. We realize that it may be affecting these people and we became aware of it. So we are currently going through investigations and taking immediate actions. And then like the initial information of the situation, like this is what we know so far, and then the action steps they're taking, and of course like they're closing, thank you for your understanding and continued trust. And then sincerely, CEO, Communities in Schools, San Antonio.
Fantastic. Tell us more.
So then the notification systems and communication channels, this is basically like, where is this press release going to? Or where is this crisis communication going to? So like emails, social media notifications like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are the three that they mainly use. And then of course like website updates so that everyone's in the know of what's going on. Primary channels are the website and the email. So give at cissa.org. And then the secondary channels are the social media platforms that they use. And of course, the local news outlets like KENS 5, KSAT 12, WOAI 4, monitoring and listening tools. So this is like the internal aspect of it. Google Alerts, Mention, Hootsuite. Those are all really popular tools in public relations that I've looked at, that I've heard about. So these are definitely like something to keep note of. Like research those monitoring and listening tools because those are important to know. And then the escalation procedures, any updates would go to the PR manager. Let's say a news outlet says something bad about Communities in School San Antonio, they would be in the know. They would be the first to know. Like, hey, this is something that I heard. This is something that I read. This is important. And they would be the ones that are actively taking on those. And then the internal communication strategy is email notifications, the review and update contacts. So like it's a quarterly review. So like every 4 months, basically, review and edit contact lists because a lot of news anchors may have departed the stations that they're at, may have moved jobs, may have retired. That kind of situation. Post-crisis review. So after the crisis is over, then there's going to be like a meeting to review the actions that were taken and just keep editing those strategies, like what worked best, what didn't work best, what can we do to better assess the situation. The digital and social media strategy is basically like how social media posts are scheduled, what kind of media is created for those, and then like the statements that are posted for everybody to see, including followers. The legal considerations, these are reviewed by the attorneys, the lawyers representing communities in school San Antonio, basically when a crisis happens. So like all the public statements are reviewed because they will be the ones to tell you, "Oh, don't mention this, don't mention that. That could be a lawsuit." That doesn't really necessarily mean every action's going to be a lawsuit, but they're just preventing that from happening. Drills and simulations are basically like fire drills, active shooter drills, those kinds of things. So they would take bi-yearly crisis situations to test response mechanisms. So like in case of an active shooter, in case of a cybersecurity threat, those kinds of things, those are definitely important because if you don't do that, it's going to be total chaos. I've learned about this. Total chaos when something happens. I've seen this, I've heard this. Bad, very bad. The resource allocation is basically like budgeting, but like budgeting for any crisis situations or funding that may happen. I would say if you're having donations, like if you're receiving donations, monetary donations, put some aside for crisis allocation because it's so important. And then reviewing the schedule, review and update the crisis plan if necessary every 6 months. I've learned about this because it's very important that if something changes or if something happens, you can't stick to the same thing. You have to update it to best fit what worked well and what didn't work well. So then the feedback mechanism would be surveys being sent to team members after the crisis just to assess the situation, like what worked for this situation, what didn't work in this situation. And then it would help update like the schedule, update the crisis plan. Yeah. And keep documentation. It's really important that it's all in one place. You could have one folder that has different folders for better organization. You could label it crisis documentation and like have all these different folders like what to do in active shooter situation, what to do in public press release situation, like if something goes wrong. And then this last part is the campaign pitch. I'm really proud of that because this was where it was highlighting the whole entire thing for people to see.
And you were able to give us way more information in this video than you were in that video because it was such a constrained activity with such little time to say a lot of things. Tell us how you tackled that problem.
I tackled this basically like took note of everything that I had done, and it was very stressful in my opinion because I was working a lot and I didn't have that much time. I was rushing it. I was like, I need to submit this as soon as possible because the deadline's coming up. It was challenging, but it was totally worth it in the end because it's basically just highlighting the key points. So like basically what I'm doing now, but condensed. I think it had to be like a minute or two. I should have been better prepared in my opinion, but it's fine.
We do the best we can with what we have, and that's life. Perfect is the enemy of done, right?
Yeah, and like in my personal experience, put the effort in. Don't worry about perfectionism. So don't worry about like making the video portion perfect. Just make sure that you're highlighting all the key aspects that you need. And I feel I did a really great job on that.
Holly, thank you for sharing your entire PR plan. What is the biggest piece of advice, the most important advice you'd have for students who are about to start their PR journey?
I would say make sure you practice your skills. Like I'm definitely one of those students that's like I want to practice writing my press releases better or I want to see what it's like to be a public relations specialist. So consider like getting an internship or like even just join a club related to public relations. I'm definitely going to do that because I'm so interested in public relations that it's like I want to practice. I want to learn from people, and just continue to share what you know. Like if somebody's like, "Oh, you took public relations, could you help me?" You could be like, "Yeah, I have the skills that you need. Like I have that experience that you need. Let me help."
Awesome. Being able to step up and help is part of what the equipment that you got in this class allows you to do, right? You have the skills in the toolbox. You have the equipment in your toolbox. You can pull it out and see, I know how to do that media pitch. I know how to do that press release. I know how to create that social media content. Whatever you're thinking about the biggest challenges in the course and how you overcame them, what advice do you have centered around challenges?
I would say keep going. Like, don't worry about perfectionism. Challenges are great. Like you're learning a lot just by doing the hands on stuff. Don't worry about, oh, this isn't the way that I wanted it to be. Submit it because you could get feedback on it. Like, this is what's being asked, this is what's being required. And, like you could tailor that content that you create to that feedback. Oh, so this is what I needed to do. You could get a better grade. It's really simple.
Yes. And not everyone has the benefit of a degree in journalism to bring to this course. Tell us about how your degree in journalism informed your PR work and how your PR work might have informed that journalism degree that you have already earned.
I would say personally, journalism was not my first major. I was actually majoring in music education and I changed to journalism because I was like, I don't fit in music education. I don't like what I'm doing here. So then journalism kind of influenced me like, oh, I want to be a news reporter. And that's kind of what influenced me to do journalism. So I wasn't really planning on doing communications. Like I thought there was a journalism degree when I was applying here. And I realized, oh, wait, that's not available. And then I heard about it and I was like, oh, well, too late. I already joined communications. It doesn't matter. Like we can figure something out.
Which is a great relationship to journalists.
Yeah, and I didn't choose public relations until I met with my academic advisor during the fall semester. So that was really cool because he was like, "What concentration do you want to focus on?" I was like, "What kinds are there?" He was like, "There's public relations, there's health." So I chose public relations because I was like, oh, "This sounds cool. Like I want to learn about it and get familiar with it."
Express, you had to learn how do you leverage your Adobe Express skills to be creative in creating exactly the kind of digital media that digital media influencers might create. So it's great that you have this kind of symbiotic relationship with these other parts of the discipline as a part of your degree, right?
Yeah, and I was telling myself like the past few weeks like, "Huh, this is interesting. Like I like this. I'm sticking with it." I don't see myself changing my major again just because of my journalism degree. Like I'd rather learn something new than stick with the same thing.
Whatever your degree is in, you can shift when you graduate and reskill
Exactly.
in similar industries. But having a digital media influence degree, having a health communication degree, having a public relations major degree, or organizational comm, or any of our other amazing degree plans helps you to be prepared for those other adjacent industries as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen like a lot of public relations professionals like, "Oh, this is cool. Like this is what I do." So it's not just press releases. It's not just press conferences. There's a lot more to it that I still have to discover.
Fantastic. Well, Holly, thank you again for taking the time to share your wisdom about the public relations course and a little bit about your journey. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Of course, thank you so much.